like delete all my like background noise while Clary was talking.
You can do this, Valia. Hold on to your crystals.
Yes, so did I.
That's why we do separate audios. It's the best.
Cute.
Welcome back, friends. We're so happy to have you here. We're the Reading Queens, and we're here to blab about our favorite books, why we love them, and the book boyfriends we wish were real. And we're really excited to be back for another episode. I'm Valia. Hi. And today I'm joined by three of our awesome queens. Ladies, say hello.
Hi, I'm Kay.
I'm Tess.
Hi, I'm Clara.
That's right, Kay and Tess are back, and yes, you are hearing a new voice. I'm super pumped to have these three ladies here, so let's just get into it. How is everybody?
I'm just so excited to be back. I had to interrupt to say it.
It's all good. I'm excited you're back.
I'm excited to be back too, and I can't wait to catch up with you guys and tell you what I've been up to. But first, I think y'all should hear from Clary.
Yep, absolutely. She is our newest queen. So we're going to go ahead and just dive into that. Clary, can you introduce yourself and tell us what you're working on and what's going on in your life?
Hi, yes, I'm super excited to be here as well. I'm Clary, which is short for Clarissa. And my dad was an English teacher, so he named me after a book.
Oh, okay.
What book?
It's called Clarissa.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, whenever anybody asks me, there's like part of me who wants to say like Rebecca or Wuthering Heights or something. It's like, but no, it's a very old book. It's one of the first novels written in English. It's 1 million words long.
Wow.
And it took me 15 years to read.
Wow.
It's epistolary, so it's all in letters. And all my friends at university who studied English literature were told not to bother actually reading it, to just read the notes on it.
That's cool.
That's a cool
Yeah.
story.
So that's a bit about me. So 6 years ago, my husband and I, with our 2 children, moved from the UK to the Netherlands. So we now live in the Netherlands. And what else do you want to know about me? I love tea and bundt cakes and books. I've always loved fantasy stories. So when I was about 13, I had an English report from school, and it said 2 things on it that I remember. First of all, I needed to read a greater range of things and not just fantasy. And then it also said that my knowledge of Shakespeare was very helpful in class discussions.
Okay.
Hey, Shakespeare's not fantasy. That's a
No,
very
exactly.
wide range.
Right.
I've published 2 non-fiction books about moving abroad and bilingual children. I have a collection of short stories. My novel Dragon Shift published at the end of last year, and I'm finishing up Fae Fair, which is the first in my Fae series.
Woohoo!
And my plan is to alternate books in those 2 series. So they're both clean YA fantasies that explore place and belonging in different worlds.
Very nice.
Love that.
That's me.
I know I don't have a cool catchphrase. I need to come up with a cool catchphrase for my books.
And I feel it's so
I did have to put it in
appropriate.
there.
Yeah. I feel it's so appropriate with you being in the Netherlands, which I'm sure is, where that came from. Filling.
I was trying to think of something that also included my non-fiction things, because they're also about, it's just in the real world rather than in a
Right.
made-up world.
Okay. That's cool.
Well, I have a question. Your first book is all about a dragon shifter, and I just wonder what led you to write about dragons and that kind of world, I guess.
I've always loved dragons. I don't know. I'm sitting here surrounded by them. I've got a nice wooden one, and there's a Lego one over there.
Nice.
And I have about 3 stuffed ones that I think my children have stolen. So yeah, I've always loved dragons. So
that's a
it
good
would be
answer.
strange not to write
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
What more do you need?
And my dragons are friendly. They're not fierce and gonna set fire to you.
Unless you do something wrong.
I know I always want to write a dragon into my books, but I have this like half finished dragon story, but that's just half finished. So I just haven't gone around to it. But I love dragons too, so it's like always really fun to read people's like authors' takes on, you know, the same lore kind of, but like how people can interpret it, which I think is what's so fun about books in the first place, is just seeing people interpret like the same ideas in such different ways.
Well, and same with Fae. All of us have a Fae series, and
Yeah.
I love that too, just seeing how everybody uses the same lore but in different ways. That's cool.
Yeah,
Right.
it's super fascinating.
You know, I love it. So yeah, but we're super excited that you're here. I love every single time we do like this intro kind of an episode. I get really excited because it's just bringing, you know, another one of the queens to the podcast and just getting everybody to meet like this amazing group of women that I'm surrounded by. And so it's like really fun. And we're almost done too. We have one more new person and then everybody's going to know everybody.
Yeah.
Yay!
So, as our usual custom, I'm about to ask our favorite question. Clary, what is your favorite book and why?
This is a very difficult question.
Yeah, for you and everybody else,
yeah.
so it's okay.
I decided to answer this with the books I most often reread
Okay.
as a way of deciding what was my favorite ones. And that gave me 4.
That's pretty good. That's
Perfect.
pretty good.
I figured as I'm the only one answering this question, I can go on for a bit.
There you go.
So, the first one is Lord of the Rings,
Great.
and it's classic. It's, yeah. The second one is Daughter of the Empire by Raymond Feist and Yanni Wirtz. Actually, I love the whole series. It's a trilogy. I think the beginning of Daughter of the Empire is one of the best beginnings I've read.
Is that the first book in the series?
Yes.
Cool.
Have you read Magician by Raymond Feist?
I haven't.
No.
Okay, it's the Magician is the first one in the series, and it sets up his world, and they are contacted, but the main conflict is between the people in that world and people in a different world who find them and want to steal all their metal. Whereas the Empire trilogy is set in the other world.
Oh.
So it has a very Asian feel, and it's, yeah. And the first scene is, the main character is, she's about 17, 18, I guess, and she's being sworn in as a priestess. So she's kneeling in the temple with a cloth over her head. So she can't see anything. There's this gong that's got to ring 20 times or something. So you're counting down the gongs till she's going to become a priestess. And it's just the most compelling introduction to a story. And she can't see anything.
That's so cool.
Is it first person or?
You know what? I'm not sure. It's on the shelf.
Well, I was just thinking if she can't see anything and she's like describing all of this in first person, that would be fascinating.
It's a lot of internal thought and remembrances and back to her family and there's another girl who's also becoming a priestess at the same time, and her thoughts and comparisons on the two of them. So if it isn't in first person, it's deep third.
Okay. That sounds cool.
The third book is Night Circus by, can't remember what her name is. Erin Morgenstern. Yeah, I love that. It's amazing. And the last is another series, which is the Ephemeral series by Anne Bishop.
I haven't read that one, but I love her other books so much.
I had to stop buying books from her because I'll read one and then I have to read all the books of hers I have. And it's like 15 books. But no,
that's why I haven't started that series.
Well, the Ephemeral series is only 3.
Oh, that's true. There was one series that I really wanted to start, and it was just so long, and I'm like, I can't commit to this right now.
The Black is that the Black Jewels one?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I have like the first 2 books. They're just sitting there because I'm like, I know I can't.
I do like it's much darker than some of her other stories.
Yeah, the only ones I've read by her is the Other series, and it's like an urban fantasy. And oh my gosh, I recommend those books to everybody. It's so good. Yeah. But yeah, I haven't read her like high fantasy or fantasy stuff.
I've read Written in Red, but I haven't read the rest of the others.
They get better.
Oh, I really enjoyed
each book.
I plan to read the later ones when I've read all the books I already have.
The constant problem that we have as readers.
Growing to be read pile.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially after these little conversations.
Exactly. I just wrote down all these books.
Yeah.
All right, gotta look into that one.
I know, I can see you're like, and who's it by? Just like a little note.
Well, I'm always impressed by how much Clary reads. Like, she reads so fast. Like when I see her Instagram posts, and you're like, oh, I just read this. I'm like, I'm still working on this other book I've been reading.
That's true.
I read on my phone. So wherever I am, it's with me. It's like, oh, I've got 10 minutes. The kids aren't out yet. Okay, I'll get read.
That's a great way to just fill up some extra time. I mean, it adds up. When I was doing that, I was reading a lot more too, because I would, like, when I was dropping my daughter off at school or waiting to pick her up, I would just read on my phone that whole time. And now I don't have as many of those, like, I don't have any other options moments now that I'm just home all the time. So I don't get those like extra ones. So now I actually have to fight like procrastination, sitting on my couch, staring, watching TV. It's like, I don't have those. I only have one option, and it's reading. It's like, I have 1,000 of them. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit on my couch. I'm going to stare. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to stare at my Kindle, stress about what I should be reading next, then go back to the book that I was already reading and just read a chapter of that before I'm like, wow, that was like 2 hours of time in one chapter.
Yeah.
You sound so much like me.
It's been a rough year for reading.
So relatable. Yes.
We don't watch very much telly. So.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, that does.
No, I think when I talked about this before, when I was living in New York and I rode the subway, that was like prime time reading time. Like I got through so many books because, you know, even 20 minutes, 30-minute ride, you get a good amount of reading done. And when that stopped, I really have fallen behind on all of my TBRs. It is what it is. Well, welcome, Clary. Thank you for sharing your favorite books with us. I'm very excited actually to check out the ones that you named, especially the Anne Bishop ones, because it's time. I should just give in and read her books. But what about you guys? Kay, Tess, I want to hear what you've been up to since the last time you've been on the episode. Tess, you wanna tell us about your life?
Oh, sure. Let's see. What has been going on since the last episode? Man, so much. Well, first, I will just make a quick catch up about my writing stuff, because I know I was talking about that. I think I was in the middle of, I was releasing my Fae series. My Fae series is now fully released, and I'm working on my next series. I have 2 series planned for 2021 that I'm working on releasing now. And so that's fun. That's exciting, getting into something new after finishing a trilogy. It's quite terrifying. But let's see, the thing that stands out the most, I'm sure from the last episodes I was in, you can tell that I love to watch a lot of shows and talk about them, and the ones that really stress me out or made me have fun. Okay, the one that stressed me out the most, you guys, I'm so heartbroken, is Sanditon, because for one, it was so good.
It's one and done.
So first of all, in case you don't know, Sanditon is based on Jane Austen's last unfinished novel. So I was like, okay, cool. It's based on an unfinished novel. I can see what's happening here. And then I read some reviews and they're like, well, it's based on an unfinished novel. They didn't finish the series. It wasn't renewed for season 2. It basically ends where an unfinished novel ends. And I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of stressful, but all the reviews are like, but it's so good. And it has Theo James. I'm like, Theo James, yeah, Divergent.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll watch it. And so I did watch it, fully expecting everything that was going to happen because I read the reviews. I knew what I was in for. And you guys, I could not handle the feels. It was such a good show. It was like, there was just so much more drama than like a normal Jane Austen series or book would have. But it was just so well done. Theo James's character was amazing. Like he did such a great brooding male love interest that I loved all the main, my gosh, it was so good. And it was just like, the characters were great. It really hammered home on the feels and the scandals and the drama. And then it ends right where in, let's say, a romance novel that you're reading, right when things get really bad and you're like, oh, the couple can't be together. But you know, if you keep reading, they're going to be together. Well, you don't get that end part. You only get the like, we can't be together part. It's sad. And I was just like, I seriously wanted to cry. Like if my husband wasn't home, I probably would have been crying for like 2 hours. And I told him, I was like, I'm so upset right now. And I was just like, I was like devastated for like a whole 24 hours. I would just be like, I can't believe that's all I'm ever going to get of that show. And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was like, I need to write some Sanditon fan fiction or like,
there you go.
Or like write a Fae series that like, and I really was totally thinking about doing it with one of my series of like trying to turn a Fae series based on Sanditon. But I'm like, since then I've been like, you know, that's stupid. Maybe later after I'm done with like my series that actually have like a solid plan and not just me trying to get my emotions. That's the main important thing I needed to talk to you guys about because I know you would understand. I'm still devastated, but I can't
that does sound rough.
I can't recommend it.
You kind of knew what you were walking into.
Yes, so. It's so silly because I knew what I was getting into. I guess I just didn't expect to be hit so hard in the feels and to love the characters so much after like, I don't know, it was like 8 episodes or something, but I really want everyone to watch it, but I really want them to stop at like episode 7 or halfway through episode 8 because there is a point where you're like, this is good. It ends here, right? It's going to end right here. They kissed. This is awesome. And then don't keep going because it's so, oh my God, you guys, I could talk about it forever. I'm devastated.
No,
devastated.
I agree with you.
It's going to be a year later.
But anyways, yeah, that's what my life revolves around. So yeah, there you go.
Well,
perfect.
My life has not been anywhere near as exciting as that. I don't know. We just have, it's just the same regular stuff at my house. I'm always busy. I'm homeschooling my kids this year, so it's, you know.
Fun times all around is what you mean.
Right. Just busy as usual.
It's, I mean, so many people can relate to that though, right? You know, just like everybody is just the beginning of the year is just crazy for everybody. And then like, it doesn't slow down because everything is just different, you know? So,
it's true.
But we just keep pushing forward.
Just make adjustments as we go. And
yeah. Speaking of adjustments, I think we should talk about our question of the day. I know it's such a weird segue, but we had this whole discussion about covers, and Kay is just the queen of just making adjustments to her covers and changing things up. So our question of the day is, what is your favorite type of a cover and why? So I think Kay should talk about her specific love of covers here.
I do have a very big love of covers. I do. And I love that you called me the queen of covers. I will take that title any day. Yeah, so covers, I have done a lot of research on them and studied them and all these things. I just love them. It's so interesting to me, the psychology behind a cover and how, we don't really think about covers that much unless you're, researching them and stuff. Obviously, you can think about them if you want, but I just love the idea that when you're a young adult fantasy reader, you can recognize other books that are young adult fantasy subconsciously just by looking at the cover. That it's just like, that it's young adult fantasy because it kind of has those things that it needs to have, and you don't even know that you know it. And I just think that's so cool. So anyway, sorry to go off on that.
Go off, queen. Go off.
Anyway, I love so many different types of covers. I'm going to name 3 different types. The first, probably one of my first loves, one of the things that really got me into studying covers were the crown covers. Red Queen, I think, is not the only one, but it is one of my favorites. I just love those Red Queen covers. And any cover that has a crown on it, I'm like, yes, I need to buy this book. It's just, I always love them every time. Several of my books have crowns on the covers. Anyway, I also love typography covers. Those ones are so beautiful. Now, if you don't like research covers, that lingo may not be something you understand. I don't know, maybe everyone knows what that means. But basically, it's just when the title of the cover is the main focus. So book covers like Serpent and Dove, or A Curse So Dark and Lonely, or what's the House of Salt and Sorrows. That one, it's just, I love those typography covers where it's just the words have the focus and then the background has just some little interesting things that are just enough to get you interested in the story. Also, I also am loving this new trend. I have 3, okay? Cannot help it.
Okay.
The third one is the close-up face. That's what I call it. And it's kind of, I feel like, an emerging trend, although it comes and goes. So it's not like this is the first time it's been around ever, but I feel like it's kind of having a moment right now. So these are covers like Aurora Rising or Fable by Adrienne Young, where they just have a close-up of the face. And I just think it's so cool when the faces are so expressive, and it just makes you feel what the main character's feeling even before you've picked up the book. And I love that. So yeah, those are my favorite kinds of covers.
I love it. Those covers, I mean, that's young adult fiction right there.
Right,
those 3 covers.
I took them all.
It took them all. Tess, do you have a favorite right now?
I mean, like Kay, I also have a couple, and I don't know. I mean, obviously any cover that is like intriguing is going to like make me buy it. But my first favorite type of cover is really intricately detailed illustrated covers. I already talked about this on the first podcast episode I was on, about how I fell in love with the book of Atrix Wolf by Patricia A. McKillop, because it was super detailed, super, super pretty illustration. It was, I just love it. And I love that style. And then it's also in Sorcery of Thorns. It's pretty, like, it has a really pretty detailed illustration. Same thing with Enchantment of Ravens. I love both those covers. They're just so pretty. Like those ones where you, like, it's pretty from far away, but then you look close and you're like, yeah, like you could just see these like paint strokes. I don't know. I just love it. It's so pretty. I mean, and illustrated covers in general are pretty, but there is something specific about that like level of detail. It's a style. Like there's a bit of like a whimsy to it, a bit of like you can see it's fantasy, and you can see it's like, I don't know. I feel like, and it's funny because I mentioned Patricia McKillop and oh my gosh, Margaret Rogerson. the one who did Enchantment of Ravens. I feel like Enchantment of Ravens reminds me so much of Patricia McKillip because it has that like beauty and that like whimsy in it. So it's kind of funny that like I feel like both those covers are really like evocative of the story itself. So yeah, but anyway, so that's like one of my first favorite types that will like get me to stop and read the back every time. I also like typography covers like Kay mentioned, and before I knew they were called typography covers, I called them like graphic covers. And I do think that there are some other ones that have a little bit more of like graphic design elements, like Gracier. It's still a typography cover, but there's like, I don't even know what to call it because there is there is like a different type where it is typography and simple art, and it's almost minimalist. I don't know, but the Gracier, I feel like that's one of my favorite covers. Where as soon as I saw it, I was like, "What is this book? Let me read the back." So it's like, I don't know, it's a different type of typography cover where it's not like the ones the typography covers I usually like are like these beautiful scrawling fonts, and there's metallic and there's flowers. But then there's different ones like the Gracier where it's like a plain font, a very simple, pretty like watercolor-esque illustration. I love it. Yeah, those are probably my two favorite types of covers, I guess I'd say. I'll stop it too because I could go on, but
I have thoughts about both of Kay and Tess's answers, but first I want to hear what Clary has to say about her favorite ones.
I like covers that when you look back at when you finished the book, they mean more to you.
Yeah. I love that.
So you think it has a bit of depth to it. I also like covers with objects on that are quite simple. So like the Cruel Prince, the Starless Sea, where there's just something, or Six of Crows as well with that big wing on the front. They're just a little bit different.
The wing has the why can't I think of the word? All the buildings in it too, you know?
Yeah, I didn't notice that for a while. That's a cool detail that you don't notice unless you like
pay attention,
stop and look at it. Yeah.
It's funny to me because all three of you, the covers that you mentioned, it's super interesting to see that in like 2013, 2014, those were the big covers. And then it like rotated out because I remember I have like so many books on my shelf that just have like half a face, and that's like the main thing. Like the Sophie Jordan's Dragon series, it's just the girl's face with the pretty hair, and she has like scales on her skin that's different color. It's so beautiful, but it was just the face, and that was like the whole fad for during that time of like fantasy. And then typography covers, especially in 2014, were like all young adult contemporary. That's like where it was at, is just beautiful typography with like sometimes watercolor and sometimes just like a building or something in the background, you know. It's just like super fascinating how the covers just really do recycle, like the trends recycle, but there's always like a new aspect to it that people bring in. One of the ones that I've noticed like in the recent, maybe like the last year and a half, is it's kind of a typography cover, but it has this effect on the cover that's, I'm trying to think of how to describe it. If I say like paper cutout, does that make sense? And so it kind of is like layered, that it is like, for example, it's like a wolf, but the wolf takes up like the face takes up half of the cover, and like the words are across it. But then if you look deeper, there's like a forest in the wolf, but it like looks like somebody took and cut out little paper figurines and then put them in. I'll have to like pull them up and show you guys.
I need to see an example of this.
Yeah, I've seen like one or two, and then I've seen like takes on that recently, and I'm like, I think I want this on my covers. It just looks so cool and just plays on that typography and then element trope of a cover, but takes it like that extra step up because somebody really like put the work in with the Photoshop, you know, and just like made it their own. I'll have to pull it up and see if I can show you guys. Maybe we'll post it in the Instagram stories too, so you guys can see it, what I'm talking about. So I'm badly explaining this.
Well, I do have a cover pet peeve.
Okay.
This is one of those things, the psychology of knowing what genre it is without even thinking about it. So pink is my favorite color, and you get pink a lot of times in young adult sci-fi, but pink is not a cover that is allowed in young adult fantasy. And it annoys me. I want more pink covers. And I understand why. I mean, I understand why, because there are very specific colors that they use in all the young adult fantasy covers, usually. I mean, obviously you have a little bit more leeway when it's a series and it's a later book in the series. But there's just not enough pink. There needs to be more pink. I wish more people agreed with me on that.
I mean, I don't, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of pink either.
I don't know. I always think pink goes with like contemporary. I don't even think sci-fi. I think
true.
Pink, and it's like
definitely contemporary. It is. I just don't study contemporary as much, but you are right. I have seen a lot of contemporary covers with pink. I'm thinking the new cover with Cinder.
Okay, that is pink.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
I
like a fuchsia, like a hot pink.
I used to have like a whole list of these that I knew of, and now I can't think of any off the top of my head.
The Gray Seer is pink, but it's not really fantasy. It's like...
It's more dystopian
Yeah,
than
it's more dystopian. The Crown from the Selection series is like a lilac pink. And again, that's not like fantasy. It's that's funny. I'm looking at my shelf right now, and I'm like, yeah, all the pink ones I see are either they're closer to purple or they're not specifically fantasy. Mm-hmm. How odd! I've never noticed that.
There's also a lot of purple in young adult sci-fi, but I feel like it's kind of trickling down into fantasy. And maybe it had been for a while and I just didn't notice, but I feel like there are a lot of purple fantasy covers, but still no pink.
No.
So the pink cover that I always think of, which is so random because it's like the brightest thing on my shelf back here, it's a horror YA.
Is it
The Merciless or something?
Yeah, I had that one on my like wish list for a while, but never really I never ended up buying it just because I don't read a lot of horror, but I like witchy stuff and like supernatural, but it's never made it to my like the forefront of my like desires list. I keep bumping things above it just because I'm like, I don't really read horror. I'd probably like it though. It's not like I don't like horror. I'm just usually tempted by other things first.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating how completely different the cover is though than the market like for the genre.
That's true.
Even when that came out, they weren't putting out hot pink books for horror. Like, what? But it is very like just the color, and I think it has just like the little diagram or something in the front with the title, and it's like very simplistic, but I don't know, it went around everywhere when it came out, like, what is it, like 5 or so years ago?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, like, that's super interesting to me.
It's cool. What were you going to say earlier, Clary?
I was just going to say, it's interesting that none of us said that we liked a girl on a cover in a pretty dress.
I do like those, though. But I feel like those ones are pretty easy to find, and they will get me every time. Like if there's a pretty girl in a pretty flowy dress and she looks super cool, I'm like, girl, tell me what you about. But yeah, I mean, it is one of my favorite ones, but I don't know. That's funny that none of us said that because those are like a lot of our covers.
It's our covers. I think that's why
we don't have that. We're like, we already have that. So it's not like new and exciting. Like, oh man, I just cannot wait to get another ball gown. I mean, yeah, I'm super excited to get another ball gown, girl, let me tell you. But I am real fascinated by these ones that I don't have.
Right, yeah. That's true. I do really I feel like there was definitely a time for young adult fantasy where it was only a girl in a gown, and I had a really hard time picking books at that time because I felt like they weren't really they weren't really like making them look different enough that I was like, oh, I want to read about this girl in a gown. It was more like okay, cool, it's like the same exact character that I just read about, you know? But I think what's really fun, like, for example, like, even with our covers, those of us who do have a girl on the cover, I think all of
Kay got rid of hers.
All of our covers are, yeah. Yeah, Kay doesn't have one anymore.
Yeah.
But I think all of our covers actually showed like character, and like when you look at the girl, you're like, okay, like I do want to find out a little bit about her. You know, it's not just somebody in a pretty dress and just doing nothing. Like, I mean, even having like on Tess's, your first book, she has a dagger. Like, that was already so different because at that time, nobody had anything but a pretty good gown and, you know, they didn't have weapons, nothing. So even like that little bit of a thing, I think just makes such a big difference on like a regular cover. So I think like indie really has taken over that specific like girl on the cover and made it so much better than like the traditional fad that like went through, you know, whatever, 2 years, I think, of covers.
Yeah, you're right. That is the thing that I think differentiates them, is when you can see the genre and even the subgenre and like little pieces of the story. And I think that that's what makes them stand out and be exciting. It's like even like Clary's Faye Fair, like the girl looks completely different. Her character, you can tell the difference between her main character and my main character by looking at him. You know, Evie's not going to go walking into Clary's book trying to stab some people. And you know that the girl on Clary's book probably isn't going to be in the stabby, smutty Faye book. Like, I think that's really cool that you can show so much with a cover. And that's what sets them apart and like makes them exciting, because you can kind of see what you're looking for by that.
Right. I do think indie market, especially the cover designers that work, at least like the cover designers I work with, they really just, they're amazing, first of all, to just really take something that we tell them and create it to make it look that when somebody else looks at it, they see our vision. And I feel like I've been personally really, really blessed with the cover designers that I found in the last couple of years, because it changed the way my books are just even perceived by other people, you know, because they look at it and they're like, oh, okay, like, let me just stop and look around in this, you know, kind of thing, versus somebody just looking at a cover that they've seen a million times before. And you know.
Cover design is so important.
Well, I feel like we can't talk about young adult fantasy covers unless we talk about a certain illustrator. Okay, I'm only mentioning this because we already talked about 2 different book series, or 3 books actually, that this illustrator has done covers for, and it's Charlie Bowater. A lot of people know who that is, but if you don't, she illustrated the covers for An Enchantment of Ravens, and she did Sorcery of Thorns, and she did the Aurora cycle, so Aurora Rising, Aurora Burning, and the last book, which may have a title by the time this podcast is aired. Anyway, she's done a lot. She's done Skyward, she did also.
Oh my God, that makes sense. I love those ones.
And Star Daughter, she did. Anyway.
Bone something about
Crier's
Bone.
Moon, yes.
Yeah, the 2 people on the cover. They do, like, now that I think about it, it's funny because she has a style. 2 different styles. Like, one of them is that like whimsical, like the Sorcery of Thorns, a close-up, and then the other ones are like the people and their characters. Like, you can really tell, because I looked her up recently after you guys were talking about it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, all these, like, you can see. I thought for a while that there was just, this art was just so, like, kind of looking the same, like these characters, like people were just like illustrating characters that kind of the same. Like, no, that's her style. It's one person doing all these covers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. Yeah, because Skyward, I didn't know about that, but it does look like
the same style,
character style as like Bone. What was it? Bone Crier's
Moon.
Yeah,
I was actually very surprised to find out that she did Aurora Rising. I did not. I knew who Charlie Bowater was. I knew she had a lot of covers. I knew about her style, that kind of thing. But to me, that one, I don't know, it was just different enough that I was like, oh, I didn't know that was done by her.
It
so that was
is.
kind of
Yeah,
a
that
surprise
one
to
is
me.
different.
Yeah.
That's cool too.
It still has that like very detailed look, but the character face does look a little, it looks different than what like Skyward looks like. That's really cool though, to be to be able to have such a cool iconic style, but to be able to like change it up enough to do totally different styles. Well, I mean, it's like similar but different. I don't know, you guys. It's just cool, and I'm jealous, and I wish I was that cool at art.
You are pretty good at art, though.
That's true.
I do okay, you guys. I do okay.
I draw stick figures. Whoa. So you're way ahead of me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I draw stick figures, but terrible stick figures. I mean, they're not even like okay stick figures, so... We appreciate those who can do art.
Yes. We do have a few of those in the Queens, which is, I think, is just awesome.
Yeah, and Valia, you're one of them.
That's true. Valia is.
I dabble.
Yeah, don't be trying to pretend you're not one of them. We know you are.
I'm working on it. I'm very excited to kind of, I guess, show off some this year. So
exciting.
Yeah, by the time this podcast comes out, I guess it'll be out. The cozy mystery that I designed the cover for and drew and stuff. So that was like a huge project that was so fun for me, and like I'm excited to do it. Hanna helped with the typography because she's awesome, and also she was like, maybe you should fix this and maybe you should fix this, but she let me do it, so it was great.
And when I say maybe, I mean definitely. No, I don't know.
She is like, really good about finding those things, because she gave me feedback on a couple of my when I'm like playing with Procreate. She gave me some feedback on some of the things too. I'm like when I did my first map, like it was my first map on Procreate, and I had no idea that like a wall shouldn't be straight. I didn't know that. I was like, it's a wall. They build them straight. When it's close up, they're straight. And she's like, but like terrain. I'm like, you are so smart. Hanna makes maps that are actually like really, really cool. And like, yeah, I learned a lot from that. Like one feedback, I'm like, oh my gosh, I almost made like the stupidest wall ever.
I know, she's amazing. And even like when I was drawing my cover for the cozies, just a little thing was that she told me not to do an outline for the girl or for anything. Like there's no outline for like the people, so like the skin is just the skin without having like that outline. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you'll see it, like you can see it on the cover, and just the difference that made. I was like, oh, like I wouldn't even think of that. But she was like, let's try without an outline. I'm like, okay, can I do that? She's like, yeah, you can do that. I'm like, okay. So yeah, she's amazing. And so it's really helpful to have somebody who can like look at it and be like, hey, let's fix this, which I think is kind of what Kay does. Like she can look at a cover and be like, hey, well, let's look at this from here. It
is funny, though, because I'm approaching it from such a different point of view. Hanna actually has a designer eye. She's an illustrator. And for me, I am so analytical. It's all just, okay, I've studied these, and so I know what the cover elements are, and it doesn't feel the same as these cover elements that I know, So it's like the logic analytical side versus the artistic,
which I think is so cool. Because you get both sides, which I think is really cool. But that's just like, I don't know, that's why I love our group so much, is because we're all different, but we can all like come at the same problem from different sides instead of just having like one viewpoint. And I think that's really cool. So, especially
go ahead. Especially
what's up? No, I was gonna segue into the tropes part, but go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, I was just gonna say, how many of us have bought a book just because of the cover?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Everybody.
Right. Okay.
I'm sure.
This is a better question, because obviously the answer is yes. Nobody can say they haven't. Everybody has. What is a book you've bought because of the cover?
Oh.
Ooh.
I know, I actually don't have an answer. I'm going to have to think about this.
That's really funny. That's going to be our homework for next week.
There you
go. Yes,
because
that's a good idea.
I can tell you a book that I bought, like I searched for because I wanted a specific cover. But I can't think of one.
Well, tell us that one.
the Mistborn UK covers.
Oh.
The white
cool.
with the blue. I wanted those.
Those ones are pretty.
Yes.
Do they have them on Book Depository?
They did, but I had to like wait for it. Like I had to, because they were out for so long, and then finally I was like refreshing every week. Because I wanted those. But yeah, let's do that as the homework for next week. I will be very curious to hear.
I do have my answer actually, but it's really boring because like I literally just talked about this, and I've talked about this book a million times now. It was the Book of Atrix Wolf. I didn't buy it, but I was at the library and I was pretty young. I was like maybe, I don't know, 12 or 13, and I just loved the cover, and I was like, I don't even know what this says. I don't even know if there was a blurb or not. I think I was just like pretty, and I borrowed it from the library, and then I loved it. And so that is one I can for sure say, because most of the time I will look at a cover and it'll make me want to buy it, but usually I'm the type who will linger and wait for a while and maybe stalk the book and see, you know, how the fandom picks up, especially if it's like a trad book and I know I'm going to hear a lot about it. I'll usually wait a little bit before I buy one. But I'll think about one that's more recent for next time. There's probably quite a few indie ones where I was like, love the cover, gonna try it.
I can think of a book that I want to buy because of the cover, but I haven't bought it yet. Does that count?
Okay.
Yes.
It's A Song of Wraiths and Ruin.
Oh, that cover is cool. I love the green on that.
And just the sense of movement in the fabric as it's all around her.
Yeah, what's the other Spin the Dawn that also has that similar sense of movement where you just like can feel it move on?
That one I do have.
Ooh.
I had to think about it. It's like one of these I have. That's cool. Well, speaking of homework, or next week, I guess, better to say, that did not make very much sense, but we're going to go with it. In the next episode, we're going to dive into one of our trope discussions. And each of us will pick a different book to read this week, all following the same theme. And then if you follow us on Instagram, you can definitely guess what we're going to be talking about next week. And also, you know what, tell us what your favorite cover is, because I want to know what people are thinking out there. So yeah, but first, Kay, what are you reading next week?
I will be rereading The Lunar Chronicles.
All of them?
Okay.
Well, you know, I reread them all periodically all the time, so.
Sweet. Tess, what about you?
I'm also doing a reread, and it's The Selection.
Cool. Clary, what about you?
I'm reading The Red Queen, which I haven't read before, so this will be the first time for me.
That's cool. I'm rereading Ash Princess. I never finished this series, but I really loved book 1, so this might be what pushes me into actually finishing it. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about this trope too, because I think this is a very, very cool one. So
one of our favorites.
I hope you guys, I hope you guys come back next week. And yeah, don't forget to follow us on the Instagram. We're posting updates, and you guys are getting to know us a little bit better with our weekly posts on there. So hopefully you are enjoying that as much as we're enjoying doing that. But yeah, Clary, how'd you feel being on your first Queens podcast?
It's good. It's exciting to finally be part of it.
I know, I'm excited. I'm excited everybody's here. This is such a fun time for me. But yeah, thank you for listening to Reading Queens. Before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and make sure to follow us on Instagram at Reading Queens Pod. Then stay tuned for next week, and happy reading. Bye.
Bye.